It's arguable that his midsection has greatly reduced in terms of its density. There aren't that many hair follicles that are active, and the ones that are active, you can see that, they're kind of thin and wispy. At the same time, again, we're getting another shot of the crown, maybe, and on to the next picture, and already you can see the progress that's being made. Hey guys, before we continue this video, I would like to mention that we now have liposomal minoxidil sulfate on my website, follicles.com, folligenz.com, and if the order queue is available and open, you can order it there. We're running it as a cosmetic. There are other sort of botanicals inside of this particular topical that are pretty helpful when it comes to conditioning the hair. So that's at follicles.com, folligenz.com. That's folligenz.com. Go check it out and maybe even try it out. See you there. Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another hair loss review video. We're back on the Trestless subreddit, and we're going to be looking at this particular user by the name of Affectionate Ask 4803, and the title of the post is, quote, 5 months on minoxidil and dutasteride, and the results speak for themselves. For themselves? Themselves. That's a weird way of spelling it, I guess. I'm actually amazed with the improvement, unquote. Okay, so let's look at his results. His baseline, he has diffuse thinning. You can clearly see the mid-scalp, not the mid-scalp, but the crown area where the hair kind of whirls outward. He doesn't have that much density. Again, like I said, you can see a lot of scalp in this particular picture. It's kind of like he's doing a bit of a comb over, so we're not able to see the midsection, but it's arguable that his midsection has greatly reduced in terms of its density. There aren't that many hair follicles that are active, and the ones that are active, you can see that, they're kind of thin and wispy. So 5 months. Let's see what happens within 5 months. So on to the second picture. The lighting over here is pretty poor, but he is using like a hairband to pull back his hairline, his hair. At the same time, again, we're getting another shot of the crown. Maybe this is like the second month of him using his treatment. It's tough to say because he doesn't label it. Maybe we'll see in the description of his post. But yeah, overall, you can see that maybe there's some sort of improvement, but the problem area is definitely in that sort of crown, the crown area, for lack of a better term. And on to the next picture, and already you can see the progress that's being made. Now, you can't just simply say it's a comb over, primarily because, well, he didn't have enough hair in the beginning to actually do a comb over. Let's go to his first picture over here. So this is some substantial improvement in the density of his scalp. And people are always bewildered as to how come people can get these sort of good improvements in a short amount of time. 5 months is a very short amount of time. It could be the case that he was recovering from a telogen effluvium, right? And that telogen effluvium was already happening due to ongoing androgenetic alopecia. So some of the hair follicles were already dormant. And by simply reducing DHT and taking minoxidil, again, there are going to be some people who are hyper responders who have that high sulfuryltransferase enzymatic activity. By taking minoxidil, it kind of woke up a bunch of his hair follicles from dormancy to actually start producing hairs in those 5 months. And that can happen probably as soon as like 2 weeks on consistent use of topical or oral minoxidil. So we can see that the recovery was very early, right? So I'm not sure if this is the 5-month result or whatever, but let's look at the next picture in the camera roll. And it's just a good side-by-side, right? We can see the before and the after. And at least in the crown area, a substantial amount of hair grew back such that you can't really see any scalp. Maybe the density is not good, but the coverage is good enough to block any sort of scalp show. So really good result. You can't really hate on the guy. He might just be in, a minoxidil, an oral minoxidil hyperresponder, if he was using oral minoxidil or topical minoxidil hyperresponder. But yeah, Dutasteride at 0.5 milligram lowers scalp DHT by around 50%. So you're always, I don't want to say always going to get a better result. Some people just get the same results they would have gotten on finasteride, but you're likely to get a better result with dutasteride, or an even sooner result. So he, of course, leaves nothing in the description of the, of the post. Maybe it's in the comment section. We scroll down real quick. Others are saying oral minoxidil is truly amazing, closest drug we have to a cure. And somebody argues oral dutasteride. I don't want to go through this whole thing of just arguing. It looks like 22 replies were being held, but there are some studies that show 5% topical minoxidil is just as the same as 5 milligram oral minoxidil. But of course, there's going to be some, some variance. Some people are going to respond better on oral minoxidil, maybe because of, liver sulfuryltransferase enzymatic activity. But there are some studies that show that you still need some active sulfuryltransferase enzymatic activity, in the hair follicle. So that's something to note. So somebody asks the question, was it topical min? And he responds, no. I should have said in the post, I use the manual all-in-one tablet. And I think manual is a telemedicine service. I think they're in the United Kingdom. So there's that. So he's taking possibly a compounded dutasteride and minoxidil oral tablet to, just get his results. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, we can go back and look at the pictures themselves too, right? He is probably just a really good responder, a hyper responder to minoxidil. I'm not going to say that dutasteride doesn't give you these, early results, but realistically, that's what's more likely, rather, is you're going to respond to minoxidil first, then the improvements of finasteride or dutasteride come along shortly after, right? So we can typically see people responding to dutasteride. Maybe they start to see improvements to their hair at around like 6 months. That's when they start to see improvements. But with things like topical and oral minoxidil, you can see the improvements, the increase of, hair width probably at around 3 months, right? And that's primarily due to the cysteine uptake. Cysteine, your hair follicles need cysteine to create disulfide bonds that ultimately create the fibers of your hair. And there are studies that show with minoxidil use, and so long as you have the proper stimulation of sulfuryltransferase, you'll get minoxidil sulfate, and that minoxidil sulfate can increase your hair follicle's capacity to bring in cysteine and ultimately become thicker and wider. So yeah, ultimately, good result. This guy, his before and after is tremendously, it looks unrealistic in the allotted time. I know some people comment, how can you be sure this is real? This is real, right? There are so many different examples. It's just the case that the people who respond the best, the people who get the most dramatic improvements, those are the outliers. But if you never take the medication, you won't even know if you're average or if you're lucky enough to be an outlier. And what a shame would it be to never take finasteride or dutasteride and or minoxidil, whether topically or orally, in any formulation. What a shame would it be to never take that medication and simply allow yourself to bald. And if it would have been the case that maybe you could have been a hyper responder, right? I'm here to broker copium. I'm a copium broker. So I'm trying to get those who are on the fence to kind of try the medications. Go to your doctor, talk about it. Give it a shot, give it a chance, and don't just sit around and cry about it. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace out, and bye.